Hey, I'm on, tight. Nice, nice. First Albie on the board for 2023. Crashed it on the surface, swimming at me, keeping tight on that fish. And just right along this rip line. Super cool. Now those are Albies I can get behind. Hanging in a little structure and a little tide, you know where to hang out. Hey folks, Captain Mike here from Salty Cape. And today, playing a little hooky Albie fishing here in, I guess technically we're in Vineyard Sound. So the approach today is really running the Albie highways. We came out of Falmouth Harbor, ran fairly far east, wasn't feeling it, turned around, now we're heading west. We found these fish here at Nobska, but it's approaching the middle of August. And in my opinion, that's a touch early for the Albies. So right now there's far more bait than Albies. So you want to find the Albie pods and you want to be ready to rock and roll when you see them, be rigged up, all anglers ready to go. Because a lot of times you don't get a whole lot of opportunity with the Albies because they're up and down and you're competing with a lot of bait. So the strategy today is twofold. One, to have a bright attractor color lure, and then the other to have a more imitative lure. My experience is when these Albies are keyed in on massive amounts of bait, really any game fish for that matter, when there's such a thing as too much bait, especially when the bait's small, you gotta have a few options out there to crack the code. So we're in a good area. Do I see Albies jumping? No, but I know we're around bait. Yes, I'm marking them on the finder. There's moving water. They were here just a little while ago. So the strategy now is to use these topwater surface erasers to create a lot of commotion to call them in, because we're going to be blind casting. And when I blind cast, I go for big, noisy, lots of commotion lures to draw them in. So we've come up on a couple of small schools of Albies here. They're in tight to the shoreline, and there's already 3 boats ahead of us that have the fish corralled. I'm going to consider the Albies their fish. I'm not going to be that guy and go charging in. So I'm just going to stay out on the perimeter, study the patterns, and hopefully find my own adjacent school of fish. But I don't want to be that guy and just blast right into the fleet. And you know, they're here ahead of us. They have it all set up, all staged. It wouldn't be the classiest of moves just to go barreling right in there. But Albies move, and they're in the area. There's moving water and a little bit of structure, so I'm just gonna work everything I can outside the school and wait my turn. So the lure we're using today is the Hogy Surface Eraser. Now this is a relatively new design. You can see this is a little worn-torn from Albie fishing and some bycatch or some bluefish. Now a couple cool things going on about this lure. One is keel weighted in the aft, so it just launches for casts. It's through wired, so it's definitely plenty strong. Features an inline VMC super sharp single hook, which is great for easy release and minimal fish injuries. Now this lure is really designed for distance, but it's also very versatile in terms of how you can fish it. Now there's 3 primary ways you can fish this. One, what we like to call the Skippy retrieve. Number 2, the soft bait retrieve, which is a dance and dart, sort of erratic action. And then lastly, we'll dub the needlefish retrieve, which is pretty much just a straight retrieve with the tip pointed toward, maybe even in the water. And it's just a steady crank. You can do that fast or you can do it slow. So let's start with the Skippy retrieve. Now the Skippy retrieve, what I'm going to do is launch this out there. I said earlier, the keel weighted. This lure just wants to go. So it's going to load up on this rod. You can see it's going, it's going, it's going, it's going, it's going, it's going. Finally hit the water. This is a fairly heavy outfit. Got 30-pound test braid, Saragossa 5000. So you can see I have my tip pointed toward the sky and a lot of twitching motion in a medium to medium fast retrieve. Now the further you have this lure out, the faster you're going to need to reel it to get it to jump. But as you get closer and the line angle gets more tight, you can slow it down a little bit. But what's happening is this bait is just hopping in and out of the water. I don't know if you've ever seen a squid getting chased by a striper, but that same sort of, oh shoot, that flee motion, and that's what you're trying to create with this. Now today we were fishing in an area where there was really more bait than Albies, and there's two ways to go. One, match the hatch, or two, an attractor lure. Now this lure with this retrieve is going to create a lot of commotion, and so that means it's going to be a good blind cast lure. It's going to make a lot of noise, a lot of splash, be very visual, and so it's a good retrieve to create some commotion. As you can see, that bait's just fleeing, hopping in and out of the water. Now the second cast is what I'm calling the soft bait retrieve. And so you cast that out. Now this lure, I'm just going to stop it so it's not a super long cast, it wants to go. I have my tip pointed toward the water at a 45-degree angle, and see I'm twitching it. But you'll notice that my retrieve is much slower than with the Skippy version with the tip up. My rod tip's pointed toward the water. I'm going to call it a slow to medium retrieve, but with lots of rod action. It's going to cause that bait to dance and dart and go up and down. Fish just like a small soft bait. And so you may not always want to create that high speed and lots of commotion. So you're matching the hatch, you're coming up in on a school, you're dropping it right into the school. You engage, you put it in, twitch, twitch, reel, pause, maybe let it sink, dance, dart. But twitch, lots of short little twitching action. You can just see how that bait's just sort of coming alive, and almost looks like a soft bait. But the advantage here is if you get a blue fish or make a bunch of casts, this bait's not going to wear out like a soft bait. So the third cast, the needlefish, what I'm calling the needlefish cast, that's as easy as it gets. Just going to cast that lure out again, going soft in the cast just so they're not super long. These will rocket. I'm just slow and low, keeping my tip pointed toward the water, and I'm just a slow, steady crank, and that bait's just going to wobble. Now, I use this retrieve quite a bit for stripers, less so Albie fishing like today, but it's a good retrieve to know, just slow and steady. If you're fishing near a rip, just a slow and steady retrieve like this as it swings into a rip, but it's just a good retrieve. And the bait's just going to have a natural wobble to it when it comes in. Now, earlier I mentioned you can fish the needlefish retrieve fast and slow. And so what I do if I'm going to fish it fast, I'll put the tip of the rod maybe 2 feet in the water, and I'm just going to reel quick. And that's going to put a quiver into that wobble action. And this is the Albie needle retrieve that I like. So you've got 3 lures in one with this thing. Top water plug, a soft bait that's durable, and a deadly needlefish. Notice how I'm putting the rod in the water. I don't want that line to touch the boat. So I'm just putting that rod right in the water. It's a 7-foot rod. So I'm clearing the boat, hoping this fish will change course, because I am midship. It's a decent sized Albie. Gonna walk him over the bow here. Here we are. Now that fish, 2 cranks and I was tight. So this hot pink surface eraser is what I would call an attractor. Certainly no hot pink bait fish around, but there's a lot of bait, kind of overcast. And so my strategy today was to stick out a little bit and give the fish a lot of commotion. So I got my crew casting in the bow, got a rod's length of line here. And this beautiful fish, I'm gonna de-hook him quick, get him back in the water. So I know a lot of guys spike Albies. I like to swim them alongside the boat. And when their pectoral fins and dorsal fins start spiking, so when I know they're ready, and off it goes. So here's the outfit we're using today. Sort of a funny looking rod. This is an outfit I had made for me 10 or 12 years ago. So long I forgot I had it. Found this in my basement the other day, and pop my Saragossa 5000 reel on it. It's the same reel I use for bass, blues, Albies, bonito, ground fishing. It's a little overkill for Albies, but it's fine. It's working with this outfit. Same braid that I tend to have on all my outfits for all the applications, 30-pound test braid. And for Albies, I tend to downsize on the fluoro. I have 15-pound test fluoro. Sometimes I'll go as light as 12-pound fluoro. And I don't know, maybe a 40-inch leader. Now, this outfit is a funky one in the sense that it's mimicking a mini surf rod, an old school 70s style surf rod. It only has 5 guides, including the tip. And so this rod is about long range casting. It's got a very parabolic action to it. Accuracy may not be this rod's strong suit, but today we were doing some blind casting and long range casting for feeds that were being rather finicky, and so we wanted to have the distance to get to them. So I thought this would be the perfect outfit to use today. So let's take a deep dive on the Hogy Surface Eraser. Now, it's about as simple as you get. You've got one size, 4 colors. You've got the hot pink attractor color. You've got the translucent amber, which is a great squid or bay anchovy imitation. Of course, you got bone, because you can't fish without bone. And last but not least, the olive silver color, and that's a great sand eel imitation. Now, these lures are built for long range. They're aft weighted and they're keeled just to swim, perfectly each time. They're through wired, so they're super strong. And they feature a VMC inline single hook with a wide gap, so that's going to increase your landing ratio and your hookup ratio. You can fish these baits fast on top, medium speed, twitchy like a soft bait, slow and low like a needlefish. We've been using these all season. We've had a great springtime session with stripers in the rip, finicky stripers that are keyed in on squid, finicky bluefish, topwater bluefish, and then of course today we're out here for early season Albies, and here we are, lots of long distance casting, blind casting. Color for me today was the hot pink, but of course the olive and the amber hooked up today as well. But just a great versatile lure. I think of this lure especially when I need long range or high versatility. And lastly, one thing I really like about fishing baits with single inline hooks is the ability to store them in a roll-up bag, like this little Hogy 8-inch roll-up bag. Just nice and compact, no banging around, easy peasy storage. So it's early season and we're kind of in we'll take what we can get mode. So in terms of tells, obviously we're looking for crashing fish. Number 2 in the pecking order is birds, vortexing birds moving fast, but once they're in a place reluctant to move again. And last but not least, where there's bait, eventually there'll be predators. So when all else has failed, if we find an area with lots of bait on the fish finder, or if we can see birds scanning the bait, that's a good area to sit. Well, the blessing and the curse to Albies is you're definitely in range in your cell phone, and it's lunchtime, work's blowing up, so time to head for the barn.